2 days before New Year's, I was sitting in my warm kitchen, drinking my cinnamon coffee, when my peace got stomped on. My son Logan and his wife Marissa strutted in like two salespeople ready to trap an old woman in a scam. Marissa had that stiff, pageant smile she always wore when she wanted something. Logan looked nervous, but tried to act like he was in charge. And without even warming their seats, they slid a thick stack of papers across my table. "A lifetime agreement," Marissa said, tapping the papers with her shiny red nail. "We just need your signature, Eleanor." Eleanor. My name. No mom. That alone told me everything. I leaned back in my chair, eyeing them the way you look at raccoons trying to break into your trash at night. "What's this about?" I asked, even though I already knew this wasn't charity. Logan cleared his throat. "It's just to help manage things better. Protect the family assets." Family assets. They meant my assets. If only they knew. They had no idea I still held ownership of the entire 300-hectare Marrow Creek Ranch, hidden so well they couldn't sniff it even with a lawyer's nose. They didn't know about the $8 million tucked safely inside my private trust, protected from vultures, especially the ones related to me. But most importantly, they didn't know I had plans. Big ones. Plans to wipe those cold, smug smiles right off their faces. I opened the first page and skimmed the nonsense. Legal paragraphs stacked like lies, all designed to make me hand over control of my properties, my accounts, my decisions, basically my entire life, to Logan and Marissa. Lifetime guardianship? I raised an eyebrow. "You two want to babysit me?" Marissa's smile tightened. "It's standard stuff, Eleanor." "Standard for who?" I asked. "People trying to rob their mama before New Year's Eve?" Logan winced. Guilt always showed on that boy's face like a neon sign. Marissa nudged him under the table, probably reminding him to stay strong. I pushed the papers back toward them, slowly, calmly. "You two really thought I'd sign away my life because you printed some fancy documents with big words?" I asked. Marissa leaned forward. "We're just trying to make sure your affairs are in order. You're 73, Eleanor. I need you to stop pretending this is about my well-being," I snapped. "You want control, and you think an old woman is easy prey." Marissa's eyes flickered. Logan swallowed hard. I stood up, walked over to the window, and let the sun warm my back. I needed that moment to stop myself from laughing in their faces. "You know," I said slowly, "people love underestimating old ladies. They think slow walking means slow thinking. But baby, I've outlived, outworked, and outsmarted more people than you've ever met." Marissa folded her arms. "We're offering you stability." "Oh, honey," I said, turning around. "The only unstable thing here is your belief that you're smarter than me." Logan sank into the chair, hands clasped tight. He didn't want this. I saw it. But he let Marissa pull his strings like a cheap puppet. "You ever wonder," I said quietly, "why I never talked about my assets? Why I never discussed the ranch or the trust?" Marissa blinked, hard. "What trust?" I smiled like the cat who finally cornered the mouse. "The trust that has $8 million sitting in it," I said. "That trust." Logan's head shot up. Marissa's smile shut off like a light switch. "And let me tell y'all something very important," I continued. "None, and I mean none, of it is accessible through any contract you put in front of me." The room froze, and for the first time, I smiled. "You wanted to play games with me?" I said softly. "Fine, I'll play. But understand this. You started this match 2 days before New Year's, and you already lost." Marissa's jaw tensed. Logan looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. I placed my hand on the contract and slid it back to them. "You can take this paper," I said. "Fold it real nice and put it wherever you folks put bad ideas." Logan whispered, "Mom, please." "Don't mom me now," I said. "You should have thought about that before walking into my house with a contract instead of love." I walked away, leaving them stunned and silent. What they didn't know was this: tomorrow was the real beginning, the real fireworks, the real war. And I wasn't the one who should have been scared. I was ready, more ready than they could ever imagine. The morning after Logan and Marissa stormed out with their tails between their legs, I stepped onto the porch, letting the cold winter air slap my cheeks awake. The sun was barely peeking over Merrow Creek Ranch, painting the snow-covered fields in a faint gold. Everything looked peaceful, too peaceful. That's when my gut told me trouble wasn't done yet. And wouldn't you know it, the phone rang. Now, I usually ignored calls from numbers I didn't recognize. But this one, I had a weird feeling, the kind you get when a rattlesnake's hiding under your porch. I answered. "Hello?" I said, trying to sound casual. "Is this Mrs. Eleanor Harper?" a smooth, unfamiliar voice asked. "Yes. Who's asking?" "My name is Derek Holloway," the man said. "I represent an organization that helps protect estates like yours from family exploitation. We heard about your situation." I froze. My gut told me not to trust him, but the words he said next made me almost drop the phone. "We can offer immediate legal assistance, surveillance of your assets, and advisory services. But there's a catch. We don't work with just anyone. You must agree to our terms to proceed, and time is critical. Logan and Marissa might try something again before the new year." I pinched the bridge of my nose. That's exactly what I needed. A reminder that those two vultures weren't done scheming. I decided to play along, carefully, slowly. "Derek," I said, "I appreciate your concern, but I have my own lawyers and my own security. I think I've got this covered." There was silence on the line. Then, "Mrs. Harper," he said, "if I may, there's more at stake than just your property. We have reason to believe they aren't acting alone. Someone else might be involved. Someone you've trusted. Someone very close." My heart skipped. Trusted? Very close? I leaned against the railing, gripping it so hard, my knuckles turned white. "Go on." Derek hesitated, then continued. "We have documents suggesting that someone inside your household, maybe even staff or family—" Impossible. Sarah had always been my rock, my shield, my other half in running this ranch. But Derek's words gnawed at me. "I'll need to see the documents," I said finally. "And I need you to come here, now." "Understood," Derek replied. "I'll drive over immediately. But, Mrs. Harper, be careful who you trust in the next 24 hours. He hung up. And just like that, the cozy morning had turned into a storm brewing in my chest. I went inside and locked the doors, twice, checked the windows, made sure nothing looked out of place. And then I saw it. A small envelope, taped under the kitchen table. Clean, neat, and unmistakably Marissa's handwriting. Inside, a single note. You may think you're clever, Mom, but cleverness only buys you time. We're not done. I dropped the note onto the table, staring at it as if it had suddenly turned into a rattlesnake. My eyes flicked toward the ranch fields. The quiet, the snow, the loyal workers out back, tending the cattle. I knew this was more than a simple contract battle. They had planned for backup, someone I hadn't even suspected. And that, my friends, was when I realized the war had just moved from the table to inside my house. I felt a chill, even with the warm kitchen heating the room. But I also smiled. They might have thought they had the upper hand with a contract and threats, but they hadn't accounted for me, Eleanor Harper, the woman who survived storms bigger than their little schemes. I was ready. I would outsmart them, and I would make sure their new year began with a reality check. And that's when I noticed it. The front gate, slightly ajar, a fresh set of footprints leading toward the barn. Someone had been there in the middle of the night. Someone watching. Someone close enough to know all my moves. And just like that, the battle lines weren't just drawn. They were moving. And the clock was ticking. Next move? Mine. And theirs could cost them everything. The morning sun filtered through the frost-covered windows, turning the living room into a soft, golden haze. I poured myself a cup of coffee, but it barely warmed me. My mind was buzzing with questions. Who had been at the ranch last night? And how deep did Logan and Marissa's schemes really go? I decided to check the barn first. The footprints were fresh, pressed into the snow, leading straight to the main door. My heart raced as I opened it, and the familiar scent of hay mixed with the cold morning air greeted me. Everything looked normal at first glance. The horses munched lazily, the cows lowed from their pens, but the snow told the story of someone who had been moving carefully, quietly around the property. I followed the tracks toward the back of the barn, and then I froze. There, in the corner, near the storage locker, was a tiny piece of fabric, torn from someone's coat. My heart sank. I knew that pattern. A deep navy with subtle stripes. Sarah's favorite coat. Impossible. She wouldn't. Could she? Before I could let panic take over, I reminded myself to breathe. Sarah had always been loyal. Always. She had helped me rebuild the ranch after Dad's passing, stood by me when Logan and Marissa tried to strong-arm me, and even protected my assets. No, this wasn't Sarah. But then, the sound of a footstep on the gravel outside jolted me. Someone was coming back. Soon. I slipped behind a haystack, my old hands moving faster than they had in years. The barn doors creaked open, and a shadow fell across the floor. Derek Holloway stepped in. "Mrs. Harper," he said, glancing around. "We wait to talk. Now." I stepped out, trying to keep my voice calm. "Derek, someone was here last night. Footprints. Near the barn." He nodded, his face serious. I feared as much, and it confirms what I suspected. They have a spy. Someone feeding Logan and Marissa information about your schedule, your finances, even your security measures. I clenched my fists. Someone close. Someone I trust. Derek's eyes met mine. Yes, and you need to act fast. If they realize you know, they'll move even more aggressively. I thought about everyone. Hank, Jimmy, Arthur. No, they were loyal. My workers would never betray me. But there was one person who had access to everything. My accountant, Vivian Lane. I had trusted Vivian for over a decade. She handled my taxes, my investments, even managed the trust fund where the $8 million was safely stored. My stomach churned. Could she have really done this? I went to her office, the small study at the edge of the main house, and knocked on the door. No answer. I tried the knob. Locked. "Vivian," I called, louder this time. "It's Eleanor. Open up!" Still nothing. My pulse quickened. I pried the door open slowly and stepped inside. Papers were scattered on the desk, files open, receipts everywhere. And then I saw it. A folder labeled Harper Estate, Logan and Marissa, marked in bold red letters. I held it in my hands, shaking slightly. Every instinct screamed betrayal. Every memory of trust shattered. Before I could process more, Vivian appeared in the doorway. Her expression was calm, too calm. "Eleanor," she said smoothly, "we need to talk." "Talk?" I echoed. "You've been feeding them everything. Every detail of my finances, my schedule, even my private letters." Vivian's eyes hardened. I didn't have a choice. Logan threatened me. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd ruin me. And I had no one else to turn to. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit her. But instead, I took a deep breath. "Vivian, I looked around at the papers, the evidence, the betrayal staring me in the face. And for the first time, I realized something crucial. The war wasn't just against Logan and Marissa anymore. It was against a network of lies, secrets, and hidden motives. I nodded slowly, my voice steady. "Then we work together. But know this, I won't be manipulated again. One wrong move, and everyone involved will regret it." Vivian nodded, relief and fear mingling in her eyes. Understood. I felt the first spark of a plan forming. If I played this right, I could turn the tables so completely that Logan and Marissa would never recover, and anyone who sided with them would crumble too. But the twist that made my blood run cold? Vivian wasn't the only one. That folder hinted at another accomplice, someone even closer to the ranch than she was. Someone I hadn't suspected at all. And that, my friends, set my mind racing. The new year wasn't just about celebrations and fireworks anymore. It was about survival, strategy, and exposing the betrayal hidden right under my nose. As I left the study, the cold winter wind hit me like a challenge. My $8 million estate, my 300-hectare ranch, and everything I had fought for were at stake. But I was ready. Stronger, sharper, and more determined than ever. Because in a battle of wits, loyalty, and legacy, Eleanor Harper didn't just play the game. She owned it. The ranch was quiet that morning, deceptively peaceful. The frost glittered across the fields. But inside, my mind raced faster than the wind outside. Vivian's revelation had shaken me to my core. She admitted her betrayal, but hinted at someone else. someone closer than I ever suspected. I needed to act carefully. Panic would only make them stronger. I started by reviewing every interaction over the past few months, every favor granted, every casual conversation. And then it hit me. Only one person had access to everything. The safe, the master keys, my calendar, even my private letters. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the truth. It was my own niece, Leela Monroe. She had been helping me around the ranch for years, visiting often under the guise of family bonding, yet always subtly asking questions about the estate. She was close enough to know my routines, trusted enough to appear harmless. I had always considered Leela sweet, loyal, eager to learn about ranch management. But the folder Vivian had uncovered had a page with Leela's handwriting, instructions to Logan and Marissa, notes about my schedule, even sketches of the security system. I felt a sting of betrayal deeper than anything I had imagined. I confronted Leela later that afternoon. She arrived for lunch, a warm smile on her face, completely unaware that I already knew. "Eleanor, I thought we could go over the winter crops together," she said, setting down a basket of fresh vegetables she had picked herself. I poured a cup of tea, keeping my voice calm. "Leela, we need to talk." Her smile faltered. "About what?" I placed the folder on the table, letting it slide slowly toward her. Her eyes widened when she recognized her handwriting. "I never expected this from you," I said softly, almost in disbelief. "I trusted you. I welcomed you here, and you betrayed me." Leela's composure cracked. "Eleanor, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Logan promised me. He said I'd inherit part of the estate if I helped them. I thought it would just be information. Nothing harmful." "Nothing harmful?" I echoed, my voice rising. "They tried to steal everything I've worked for. My money, my land, my legacy. And you handed them the map to my life on a silver platter." Tears formed in her eyes. "I didn't know what else to do. They threatened to ruin me. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the wooden floor. "Enough. You crossed a line. But here's the thing, Lila. You've given me exactly what I need to protect everything I love." Her eyes filled with confusion. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said, slowly pacing, "that you've revealed not only your intentions, but also the full scope of Logan and Marissa's plans. Every note, every meeting, every shady transaction. Now I know. And now I can turn the tables." Lila's hands shook. You can't." I smiled, a sharp edge in my voice. "Oh, I can. You see, I've spent my whole life building this ranch, this estate, this legacy. And I won't let a pair of greedy manipulators and a misguided niece destroy it. You'll cooperate with me now or face the consequences." She nodded, trembling. I'll help, I swear." The truth was, despite the betrayal, I felt a strange sense of relief. Now, I had all the pieces of the puzzle. Logan and Marissa thought they were in control. Vivian had flipped to my side, and Leela, as painful as it was, had unintentionally provided the map I needed to dismantle their entire scheme. I spent the next hours mapping out the strategy. Each step was calculated, each move designed to expose Logan and Marissa publicly, strip them of their leverage, and secure my estate once and for all. By nightfall, my plan was ready. That evening, I walked across the frost-covered fields, the cold biting at my cheeks but clearing my mind. I thought about the new year approaching, the celebrations, the fireworks. This year would be different. This year, I would not only survive, I would triumph. And the best part? Logan and Marissa had no idea what was coming. They were blinded by arrogance, certain of their victory, unaware that the person they never suspected, me, had already outmaneuvered them at every turn. But even as I prepared my next moves, a nagging thought lingered. Lila's betrayal was a warning. Trust could no longer be given blindly. Every ally would need to prove their loyalty. And if even one misstep occurred, the whole plan could crumble. As I looked up at the night sky, the first fireworks erupted in the distant town. Red, gold, and blue lights danced against the dark sky. The new year was moments away. And for the first time since Logan and Marissa had tried to take everything, I felt a surge of pure power and control. The storm was coming, and I would be standing at the center of it, unshaken, ready to protect my legacy, no matter the cost. I never liked fireworks. Not really. Their beauty always seemed to mask something volatile, something that could explode at any moment, much like the people I had been dealing with for the past year. And tonight, as the distant booms of celebration echoed over the fields, I felt the quiet before the real explosion. Logan and Marissa had grown careless. Their smirks, once confident and cold, now betrayed tiny cracks of impatience. They had underestimated me at every turn, believing that their money, their charm, and their threats would always give them the upper hand. But I had been patient. I had waited. And now, everything was in position. Vivian had been invaluable. She moved like a shadow through their plans, a silent observer, feeding me the details I needed. And Lila, well, her betrayal had turned into an asset. She hated herself for what she had done, but her guilt made her careful, precise. Between the three of us, we knew exactly where Logan and Marissa's arrogance would lead them. The first act of my plan began quietly that evening. I sent out invitations for a small, celebratory gathering at the ranch, carefully selecting the guests. My most loyal workers, a few old friends who knew the weight of a promise, and Arthur, my attorney, who had been quietly preparing the legal net to trap every move Logan and Marissa might attempt. I knew they wouldn't resist showing up. Greed has a way of overcoming caution. And sure enough, by twilight, they arrived, gleaming in designer coats. Their faces perfectly controlled masks of faux charm. But I could see it, the tension behind their eyes, the tiny flickers of fear as they glanced around, realizing they were stepping into a world where I held all the pieces. "Mom," Logan said, attempting a casual tone that failed spectacularly. "We thought a little get-together might be nice." I smiled, keeping my voice soft, almost warm. Of course, I always enjoy seeing family, especially those who are so committed to preserving our shared legacy. Marissa's lips tightened, and I knew she understood the double meaning. I had baited them perfectly. Every glance, every subtle word reminded them that I wasn't naive, that I knew. As the evening progressed, we shared food, laughter, and old stories, all carefully orchestrated to keep their guard down. But I wasn't just entertaining them. Every laugh, every toast, every casual gesture was part of the trap tightening around them. And then I delivered the first shock. Arthur, discreetly but deliberately, mentioned how careful one must be when handling estates of this size, especially those protected by well-structured trusts. Logan's hand twitched. Marissa's eyes narrowed. They had been warned before, but the way I said it, with calm certainty, made it clear that I was in control. Then, just as dessert was being served, Vivian quietly slipped me the final document. It was Logan's own signature on a set of financial transfers he thought were hidden from me. Proof of every attempt he had made to access the trust, every strategy to manipulate my niece, every lie he had told to try and pressure me. I stood, holding the papers delicately in my hand. "It's always fascinating," I said, my voice soft but carrying across the room. "How people believe they are invisible when they are careless." Marissa's hand shook slightly as she reached for a napkin. Logan's jaw tightened. They had realized too late that the entire evening had been a stage, a theater of their own undoing. And as I watched the fear start to bloom in their eyes, I felt the satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. Every betrayal, every sneaky maneuver, every false smile they had used against me was now their undoing. The night ended quietly for everyone else, but for me, it was the calm before the final storm. Because though they had been trapped, though they had been shown the consequences of their greed, the truth was, they still had one last move. One last desperate attempt that could ruin everything I had fought for. And I was ready. The night's celebration had ended, but Logan and Marissa's desperation was just beginning. They believed they had one last chance, a move so daring it could undo every plan I had meticulously prepared. The next day would reveal whether I was the hunter or the hunted. The morning air was crisp, biting at my cheeks as I stepped out onto the porch, a cup of coffee warming my hands. The ranch lay quiet, 300 hectares stretching into the horizon, untouched and untouchable, at least for now. But inside, in the heart of the house, Logan and Marissa were already plotting. I could almost hear the whirring of their scheming minds through the walls, a distant storm threatening to break over my hard-won peace. Vivian had been my eyes and ears, and she reported every movement, every whisper, every glance. They were convinced that last night's embarrassment had been just a scare, a small hiccup they could overcome. They didn't understand. I had set everything in motion, not for intimidation, but for the absolute exposure of their greed. And I wasn't just going to stop at exposure. No, this was their final test, and I intended for them to fail spectacularly. I started my day as usual, tending to the cattle, checking the fences, walking the fields. Every task was grounding, a reminder that this land, this life, was mine. But even in the midst of routine, my mind was alert, planning the next steps. Arthur had been drafting legal papers through the night. Vivian had prepared evidence files they could not possibly deny. And Lila had quietly agreed to testify if needed, a reluctant ally shaped by guilt and fear of my resolve. By mid-afternoon, the house seemed to thrum with a nervous energy. Logan paced, running his hands through his hair as he tried to calculate some angle he thought might save him. Marissa, elegant and icy as ever, pretended to read a magazine, but her eyes betrayed panic. They were cornered, and I let them feel it. I called them into the study under the guise of a casual discussion. I thought it would be nice to go over the estate, just to ensure everything is clear, I said lightly, as if it were a simple formality. They followed, masks firmly in place, hearts thundering in ways they tried to hide. Once inside, I closed the door and turned, letting my gaze settle on them slowly, deliberately. "You know," I began, "it's funny how some people believe age is weakness, that the years behind you make you fragile. But age is experience. Logan swallowed hard. His smirk, that old armor of arrogance, faltered. Marissa's face turned pale. "And yet," I continued, letting the tension build like a drum roll, "I am still offering you a choice. One simple step. The only thing that could even hint at redemption. Transparency. Complete honesty. Confession. Anything less," I let the words hang. "And every move you ever made against me is not just known. It becomes permanent, public, and irrevocable." They thought they could bluff, thought they could charm me into leniency. But I had seen through every lie, every tiny manipulation, every half-truth they used to convince themselves they were untouchable. I had lived too long, built too much, endured too much to be swayed by their smiles. Logan finally spoke, voice strained. "Mom, I raised a hand, stopping him. "Not yet. Let me finish." Marissa opened her mouth to interrupt, but I cut her off with a soft, deadly calm. "You see, the estate, the ranch, the trust, none of it is just money. It's years of life, work, sweat, and loyalty. And you believed it could be taken from me with a signature, a contract, a threat? That belief," I let my gaze harden, "was your first mistake. The second was thinking you could underestimate me." I watched their faces, calculating every flicker of doubt, every twitch of panic. This was the moment I had been preparing for, the moment when the weight of their greed would finally crush their confidence. Then I let them in on the final detail, the clause Arthur had crafted, one they hadn't seen, one buried deep in legal language that guaranteed if they ever attempted to circumvent the trust, every asset would be permanently reassigned, not just away from them, but distributed to charitable foundations and loyal workers. Dot. Marissa gasped. Logan's hands shook. The room seemed to constrict, the walls closing in as the gravity of their situation sank in. I could almost hear their minds screaming. There was no angle, no loophole, no charm that could save them now. And yet, they didn't break entirely. Not yet. Desperation made them cling to the tiniest threads of hope. But I had anticipated that. Every option, every last resort they might attempt, had been accounted for. Every path led to their defeat. Carefully orchestrated by decades of experience and a resolve hardened by betrayal. When I finally stepped back, letting the silence settle over them like a winter night, I knew the victory was mine. They could pretend, they could plead, they could bargain, but the truth was absolute. And in that truth, I was untouchable. That evening, as the sky darkened and the ranch glowed in the last light of day, I walked to the porch again. letting the cold settle around me. Logan and Marissa would be plotting, scheming, trying to find a way out. But the trap was complete. And for the first time in months, I felt not just relief, but pure, unshakable triumph. Logan and Marissa believed they had one last, desperate card to play. A move so audacious, it could reverse everything. But what they didn't know was that every choice they thought would save them had already been anticipated. Night had settled over the ranch, wrapping the 300 hectares in shadow. The lights in the house glowed softly, but the tension inside burned hotter than any daylight could. Logan and Marissa sat across from me in the study, their confident masks shattered, leaving only raw panic and desperate calculation. I could feel their energy vibrating in the room, frantic, fearful, yet still clinging to some illusion of control. I poured myself a glass of wine, slow and deliberate, as if nothing about the last few months had shaken me. But I was ready, more ready than they could ever imagine. I set the glass down and met their eyes, letting them squirm under the weight of my calm. Logan shifted in his chair, jaw tight. "Mom, come on, this isn't necessary," he tried to say, but his voice cracked halfway. "Necessary?" I echoed. "Oh, it's very necessary. Because the truth is, I can't let greed slide. Not from family, not from anyone. You thought I was weak. You thought I would crumble. But you see," I paused, letting my words sink. "Weakness has nothing to do with age. It's about character. And character is something you both left behind a long time ago." Marissa's lips trembled, her perfect composure gone. We just wanted what's fair," she said, almost pleading. "It's not personal." "Not personal!" I laughed quietly, but there was steel in it. "Everything you've done has been personal. Every lie, every threat, every attempt to corner me. It was personal. And now you're realizing that actions have consequences." I gestured to the table. "These files," I said, tapping the meticulously organized folders in front of them, "contain every single document, every email, every recorded conversation where you tried to deceive me. And not just that, they also outline the protections in place. The trust, the legal clauses, the contingencies. You think you have a way out, but there isn't one. Every escape route you imagined has been closed off." Logan's face went pale. He had always been bold, always ready to fight, to manipulate, to bend the rules. But here, under the weight of proof and inevitability, he looked small, a boy caught in the crossfire of a war he never understood. Marissa leaned forward, whispering something under her breath, trying to appeal to me, to charm me, to find some crack in the armor. But I had already anticipated every word. I let her talk for a few moments, the silence afterward cutting deeper than any argument could. "You see," I continued, calm and measured, "this isn't just about money. It's about legacy, about the life built through decades of hard work, sacrifice, and loyalty. You wanted to take it, twist it, bend it to your desires, but legacy isn't yours to claim. And now, thanks to every action you took, you've trapped yourselves in a net of your own making." Logan tried to argue again, his voice rising in panic, but I cut him off. "Every attempt you've made to cheat the system, To manipulate me, to intimidate me. It all comes back to, and any further attempt to take it will not just fail, it will cost you everything else as well. You thought you were clever. You were not. Marissa's hands trembled, and Logan's lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, I saw true fear. Not just the fear of losing money, but the fear of facing consequences they could not manipulate or escape. And then I added the final detail, the one that made them freeze entirely. The ranch, the trust, the assets, they are all secured in a way that not even one of your clever schemes can touch. Any move you make against me now triggers automatic reassignment, not to you, not to family, but to loyal workers and charitable foundations that uphold everything I fought to protect. Their faces went white. The room seemed to shrink around them. Every strategy, every plan, every desperate hope they had clung to evaporated in the cold reality of what I had built. I took a slow step toward the door, glancing back. "It's over," I said quietly. "Not for me, for you. This is the reckoning, and it's final." As I left the study, I could hear them whispering frantic plans, but I knew it was useless. Every escape, every trick, every lie they had relied on had been dismantled, piece by piece. They had walked into a trap crafted with patience, experience, and an unshakable will. Outside, the stars sparkled over the ranch, silent witnesses to my victory. I walked to the porch, breathed in the cold, clean air, and felt the weight of triumph settling to my bones. Logan and Marissa could scheme and whisper, but it wouldn't change a thing. I had not only defended my wealth, I had defended my life, my legacy, and my dignity. And deep down, I knew they were learning a lesson they would never forget. You can try to take from me, but I will always be one step ahead. Always. As Logan and Marissa realized the depth of their defeat, a last-minute move flashed in my mind. One they could never anticipate. It was a risk, a daring maneuver that could secure the future of the ranch beyond anything they had ever imagined. But it required one final, bold action. The question wasn't whether I could do it. It was whether they would survive long enough to even see it coming. Oh, the dawn broke over Hastings Ranch like a promise. A pale golden light spread over the 300 hectares, casting long shadows across the fields I had nurtured my whole life. I stepped onto the porch with a quiet satisfaction, feeling the solid earth beneath my feet. Every tree, every fence line, every corner of this land whispered stories of decades of work, resilience, and careful planning. This was mine, finally and completely, and nobody, not even Logan or Marissa, could ever take it. Inside, the house was still quiet. Logan and Marissa had spent the night whispering frantic theories, trying to find a loophole in the documents I had prepared. But as I watched from the porch, I could see the weight of reality pressing on them. The trust, the legal protections, the contingencies I had painstakingly crafted, every piece locked them out. They had underestimated me, again and again, and now they were paying for it in full. But I wasn't done. Not yet. There was one last step to ensure the legacy of Hastings Ranch, to protect it for the people who actually deserved it. My loyal workers, my devoted daughter, and the generations yet to come. I went to my study and opened the final folder, the one that Logan and Marissa had never suspected. Inside were documents to create a new foundation for the ranch. Legally binding, tying the land, assets, and trust funds to the hands of those who had stood by me when everything else had crumbled. It would ensure that no greedy family member, no manipulator, could ever threaten it again. Sarah, my daughter, had already been a part of every conversation, every decision. But I wanted to show her the full weight of what we had accomplished. She came into the study, sleepy but alert, sensing that something monumental was unfolding. I finalized it, I said quietly, handing her the documents. Everything goes exactly where it belongs. The ranch, the trust, the legacy. Safe for the people who matter. You, the workers, and the charities. Nobody else can touch it. Sarah's eyes welled up. She squeezed my hand, silently understanding the depth of my work. Mom, you've done more than defend your estate. You've protected everyone who believes in this land, in family, in loyalty, she said, voice breaking with emotion. I nodded, feeling a profound calm I hadn't known in years. And now, I whispered, it's finally over. But even in victory, there was a thrill, a test of nerve I couldn't resist. I called Logan and Marissa into the living room. They walked in, faces pale, their confident smirks gone, replaced by anxiety and confusion. I gestured for them to sit. This is it, I said, my voice calm but unwavering. Everything you wanted, everything you tried to take is gone, permanently, and any further attempts to interfere are not just futile. They will trigger automatic reassignment of assets to the Foundation. Every trick, every loophole you imagined has been blocked. Logan tried to speak, stammering. Mom, we can... No, I cut him off. You can't. You didn't understand the depth of my planning, the loyalty of those around me, or the sheer will I've carried through this battle. You gambled against someone who has spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of challenge. You lost. Marissa's shoulders slumped. She knew it was true. She knew she and Logan had underestimated me. And now, the full weight of their defeat settled over them like a stone. I walked to the window, looking out over the ranch. This land, this legacy, it's more than money. It's about dignity, hard work, and love. You two wanted to erase that. But love and loyalty can't be bought. They can't be manipulated, and they certainly can't be stolen. For the first time, Logan looked truly small. A shadow of the arrogant man who had tried to control me. Marissa avoided my gaze, her lips pressed tightly together. They had no words, no strategies, no chance of reversing what had been done. Then I smiled. A quiet, victorious smile. You will learn something from this, I said softly. It won't be the lesson you wanted, but it's a lesson all the same. Character, integrity, and true strength cannot be bought, coerced, or manipulated. They are earned, defended, and preserved, and they will always win in the end. As I stepped back onto the porch, Sarah joined me, and together we watched the sun climb higher, illuminating the land with a warm, golden glow. The ranch stretched out before us, safe, thriving, and entirely ours. My heart swelled with gratitude for the people who had stood by me, for the life I had built, and for the victory that came not from force, but from patience, intelligence, and unwavering resolve. Logan and Marissa would leave eventually, humiliated, defeated, and wiser, if they were willing to learn. The ranch, the trust, and the legacy were secured. My story, my fight, my triumph, all preserved. And in that moment, I understood something deeply personal and profoundly true. Victory isn't just about winning a fight. It's about reclaiming your life, protecting your dignity, and leaving a legacy that outlives every betrayal, every manipulation. And the golden light of the ranch bathed everything in warmth. My eyes wandered over the fields, the barns, the fences, the land that had been my life's work. 300 hectares, $8 million, countless memories, countless battles. And now, finally, peacefully, everything I had fought for was safe. No one would ever take it from me again. Not Logan, not Marissa, not anyone. And for the first time in a long time, I could breathe freely, knowing I had not only survived, I had triumphed.